No mahara mai, no mai hoki mai e te whānau. You are tuned into your Flat Out Pride Hour here on Free FM 89.0 Independent Community Media. Live stream and podcast us via freefm.org.nz. Via the accessmedia.nz app, the TuneIn app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify and iHeart Radio. Flat Out e te whānau, we do news, views and interviews for and about our takatawi, MVP FAF, Rainbow Pacifica, Pacifica Rainbow Plus, rainbow communities across the world. Based here in Aotearoa, we cover topics relating to sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, sex characteristics, and everything in between. Because sometimes fluidity is where it's at for some of our folks. Flat Out. Lady H on your mic for your funky Friday. We love having you on board e te whānau. On your show, we have officially hit May. Where has the year gone already? We've got events, what's hot and happening around Aotearoa this coming weekend. TED Talks, Queer and Muslim. Hot topic. 2 genders. Yep, that's going around America, and Aotearoa has jumped on that bandwagon. Yes, anywho, 2 genders. History tells us about gender and identity. Really good. Really, really, really good. A lot of facts in there I did not know about. It's worth a listen. And first up is Under the Spotlight. LGBTQI plus icons and legends. Josephine Baker is the highlight of this korero. Of course, we've got beats peppered through there. All of these artists I have sourced are part of our community. They are obscure sounds, beats of artists that we may not have heard of, because I know I haven't, and I like researching new music, and I hope that you enjoy them too. That's us, that's your show. So first up, Under the Spotlight, Josephine Baker, followed by a beat by Faint Shape, I Want to Be Your Bed. That's us, e te whānau, no mahara mai, no maeda.
LGBTQ plus legends, celebrating icons and trailblazers. Imagine a world where a single performance could change the course of history. Josephine Baker, an iconic performer and fearless activist, did just that. She not only captivated audiences with her talent, but also broke barriers that seemed insurmountable. Born into poverty, she defied all odds, rising to international stardom and dazzling the world with her mesmerizing performances and unique style. But Josephine Baker was more than just a performer. She was a beacon of hope for the LGBTQ plus community and a powerful voice in the fight for civil rights. Her platform was not just a stage but a powerful tool she used to champion causes often met with resistance and hostility. Her activism was a testament to her courage and her unwavering commitment to equality. Josephine Baker was born Frida Josephine McDonald on June 3, 1906, in St. Louis, Missouri. Although her early life was marked by poverty and hardship, she found solace and joy in dancing from a young age. By 13, she had left school to join a dance troupe, and soon, her undeniable talent and charisma began to shine through. In 1925, Baker made a life-changing move to Paris, France. It was here that her unique style and talent truly began to shine. Her performance in the Revue La Revue Niger at the Théâtre de Champs-Élysées catapulted her to fame. Her act, a captivating blend of exotic dance, comedy, and charm, was a hit with the French audience. One of her most iconic acts involved dancing in a banana skirt, a symbol of her creativity and individuality that would become synonymous with her career. Josephine Baker's influence extended beyond her stage performances. She pioneered breaking racial barriers, becoming one of the first Black women to achieve international stardom. Her ability to transcend racial and cultural boundaries made her a symbol of the jazz age and the roaring 20s. Despite the adulation she received in Europe, Baker faced significant racism and segregation in the United States. Her experiences fueled her determination to fight against racial injustice and inequality. Throughout her career, she used her platform to advocate for civil rights and challenge the status quo. By the 1930s, Josephine Baker was a celebrated performer and a savvy businesswoman. She starred in several films, including Zuzu, 1934, and Princess Tam Tam, 1935, further cementing her status as a cultural icon. Her Parisian nightclub, Chez Josephine, became a popular venue, showcasing her entrepreneurial spirit and dedication to entertainment. Baker's performances were not just about entertainment. They were statements of resistance and empowerment. Her artistry was a powerful tool that challenged societal norms and paved the way for future generations of performers. In Paris, Baker was embraced by the artistic and intellectual circles, and she became friends with influential figures such as Ernest Hemingway, Pablo Picasso, and Langston Hughes. This network of artists and thinkers gave her a platform to express her views on social issues and advocate for change. Josephine Baker's rise to fame in Europe contrasted sharply with the racial prejudices she faced in her home country, highlighting the complexities of her identity as both an African American and an international superstar. Josephine Baker was not just a performer. She was a fearless advocate for civil rights and a staunch supporter of the LGBTQ+ community. Her activism was as groundbreaking as her performances. During World War II, she served as a spy for the French resistance and also became a pilot for the French forces Libres in Morocco. Using her charm and connections, she gathered intelligence at high society parties and smuggled secret messages hidden in her sheet music. She was awarded the Croix de Guerre and the Rosette de la Resistance, among other honors, for her efforts. Baker's fight for equality extended to her home country, the United States. In the 1950s and 60s, she became increasingly vocal about the racial injustices plaguing America. She refused to perform for segregated audiences, forcing venues to integrate before she would agree to appear. Her insistence on equality led to the nationwide desegregation of many clubs and theaters. Baker was the only woman to speak at the March on Washington in 1963, where she stood alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights leaders. Her contributions to the LGBTQ+ community are also noteworthy. Josephine Baker was open about her bisexuality, a bold stance during a time when LGBTQ+ identities were heavily stigmatized. She had relationships with men and women, including notable figures such as artist Frida Kahlo. Baker's openness and refusal to hide her identity symbolized resilience and pride for many in the LGBTQ+ community. In addition to her civil rights and LGBTQ+ activism, Baker was also a humanitarian. She adopted 12 children from different ethnic backgrounds, calling them her Rainbow Tribe. She hoped to prove that people of different races could live together harmoniously. Her chateau in France became a hub for these children, where she emphasized the importance of love and unity. Baker's influence extended beyond her lifetime. She inspired countless artists and activists, showing that one could be an entertainer and a force for social change. Her courage and dedication continue to resonate, serving as a powerful reminder of the impact one individual can have on the world. In 2021, Baker was inducted into the Pantheon in Paris, becoming the first Black woman to receive this honor. This recognition cements her legacy as a trailblazer who fought tirelessly for justice and equality. Her life story is a testament to the power of resilience, courage, and the unwavering pursuit of one's dreams. As we reflect on Josephine Baker's life and legacy, it's clear that her impact extends far beyond the stage. She was not just an entertainer but a trailblazer who used her platform to challenge societal norms and fight for justice. Her contributions to the arts, activism in the civil rights movement, and support for the LGBTQ+ community have left an indelible mark on history. Josephine Baker's story is a testament to the power of resilience, courage, and the unyielding pursuit of one's dreams.
No mai harama, no mai hoki mai I te whānau. You are tuned into your Flat Out Pride Hour here on Free FM 89.0 Independent Community Media. Live stream and podcast us via freefm.org.nz, via the accessmedia.nz app, the TuneIn app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeart Radio. Flat Out, Tuia ngā reo o te hapori, bringing together the voices of our community. That is Free FM's tagline, and Flat Out Pride absolutely supports that kaupapa kōrero. Our voices being heard, the right to be heard, the right to share our voices without being harmed. Flat out, that's it, quite simply. that applies to everyone across the world. Wouldn't you agree? Mm-hmm. Te Laspiti, I Want to Be Your Bed by Faint Shape. Coming up on your show, we've got weekend events, what's hot and happening around Aotearoa this coming weekend. TED Talks, Queer and Muslim. Up next, hot topics. So, this korero, 2 genders. Well, we all know what Trump's up to, and now we've got Winston on the bandwagon here in Aotearoa. So I wanted to share this clip because that is very relevant and hot at the moment. History tells us about gender and identity. Knowing the whakapapa and of different cultures is really intriguing to me, and I hope it intrigues you and that it sparks something for you and sparks for you in terms of what you could potentially action from where you are in your own ways, whether it's up openly in the public or just from where you are in your world. Activism, activating the truth and safety for all, right? Flat out. That's going to be followed by a beat. Thurman Green is the artist. Creature from the Deep is the name of the song. That's us. Stay tuned. I'll be back with you super soon.
There are only 2 genders, male and female.
How do we affirmatively make the case for trans people having the right to exist?
You know how many genders there were in 2021?
72.
It's a heated debate with hardened battle lines.
Do I look like a male or a female to you? It's a trick question. I'm intersex.
Il gender non è Europa.
Some cultures have acknowledged more than 2 genders for thousands of years. Trans people exist. Trans kids exist in your school.
The gender debate has become a political issue. There's talk of a culture war, of left-wing woke ideology. But is this really a modern phenomenon? On the contrary, a look at history shows that many cultures have long recognized more than 2 genders. The topic is anything but new. We won't resolve the conflict with this video, but we can help you better understand the discussion. How is gender defined? In which countries is a 3rd gender officially recognized? And which indigenous cultures have their own ideas about gender roles? The term gender gets thrown around a lot and is often used interchangeably with the word sex, which is where the confusion often begins. The 2 words, in fact, have distinct meanings. Sex refers to a person's biological sex, i.e. physical characteristics. Gender describes social gender, socially defined roles, expectations, and identities. This distinction between sex and gender became established in the middle of the 20th century. And although some people still don't differentiate, major governments, legal systems, and agencies do. The World Health Organization, for instance, has decided on the following definitions. Sex refers to the different biological and physiological characteristics of males and females, such as reproductive organs, chromosomes, hormones, etc. Gender refers to the socially constructed norms that impose and determine power, roles, and relationships between women, men, boys, girls, and trans and gender-diverse people, including people with non-binary gender identities. Gender norms, roles, and relations vary from society to society and evolve over time. And that's where it gets really interesting. Gender roles are not set in stone, they change. Let's take a closer look. First, an overview of the global situation. The legal recognition of more than 2 genders is regulated differently from country to country. In most places, there's no official 3rd option in documents, but some countries have changed their laws since the early 2010s. There are now fewer than 20 countries that recognize a 3rd gender nationwide. Let's zoom in on the world map. In large parts of Asia and Africa, a binary gender order prevails. Kenya is the only African country that recognizes intersex people as a 3rd gender, but other non-binary gender identities are not recognized. In India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, a third gender is officially recognized. Nepal was a pioneer. It was the first country to decide that a third gender must be officially recognized. But the practical implementation came much later. In the United States, the situation is complicated and currently changing. Until now, the X option was available on passports. But immediately after President Donald Trump took office, he signed an executive order stating that the U.S. would only recognize two genders.
There are only two genders.
In South America, only a minority of countries have so far introduced uniform nationwide regulations on the recognition of a third gender. Exceptions include Argentina, Chile, and Mexico. There's also no consensus within Europe. Italy, Poland, and France, for example, do not recognize a third gender. In Spain, there's no uniform national regulation. In Denmark and Austria, however, there is. In Germany, you can have diverse entered in your passport or omit the gender marker completely. Other countries with the X option in passports are Australia and New Zealand. So clearly, it's complicated, with every country regulating recognition differently. How can you keep track of it all?
In our Western European culture, this binary gender system is more prevalent and has been for a relatively long time. But it's different in non-European cultures.
For more on that, let's look back at history.
I really believe there's been a great diversity of gender and sexuality on all continents, that all societies have integrated it. There are 800 local languages in Papua New Guinea, and in each of those languages there are terms for something between man and woman, and they're not even discriminatory. They don't place value judgments on it at all.
Long before our modern gender debate, Indigenous communities had their own concepts of gender roles and identities. Here are some examples. In Juchitán, a city in the Mexican state of Oaxaca, there's still a large Muxe community today, a tradition celebrated even before colonization. The Muxes are a recognized third gender among the Zapotec people in Oaxaca, who maintain traditional dress, the Zapotec language, and other cultural traditions. Zapotec culture dates to the 6th century, and Muxes have always been a part of it. Once a year, a big festival is held in their honor.
Es una fiesta de la diversidad, es una fiesta de resistencia, es color, es luz, y es una celebración a la vida también.
Muxes are usually assigned male at birth and take on traditionally female roles, but they cannot simply be equated with the Western concept of transgender. Their identity is culturally unique and closely linked to the Zapotec community. Before colonization, early pre-Columbian civilizations had concepts of gender identity that went beyond the binary. That changed with the arrival of the conquistadors and Christian missionaries.
I believe religion does indeed play a major role, that the Christian religion has dictated and destroyed a great deal with its moral concepts. And it's the way power is exercised, of course. It really is the case that the binary is a tool of power.
Although Mexico has now legally recognized a third gender, the Muxes still encounter violence and discrimination in everyday life. Like the Muxes, similar communities in other parts of the world are also fighting for greater social recognition, despite their centuries-old history. A look at South Asia shows this clearly. Non-binary gender identities have a long tradition in Hindu society. There are references to what are called hijras in scriptures dating back over 2,000 years. Hijra is a term used in Hindi and other South Asian languages to describe a distinct third gender identity, neither strictly male nor female. Today, hijra is often used to refer to intersex or transgender people, but this falls short. Not all intersex or transgender people identify as hijra, and vice versa.
Transgender is gender identity, hijra is a tradition. So we need to understand the thing clearly.
Modern concepts of gender fluidity do not necessarily coincide with traditional views in indigenous cultures. Traditionally, hijras are associated with the Hindu goddess Bahuchara Mata, a goddess of fertility and purity. They were regarded as spiritual mediators and bestowers of blessings, and they were even worshipped as demigods in many regions. In the Mughal Empire, hijras often held high social positions. That changed drastically with British colonial rule. In 1871, hijras in India were classified as criminals by law, lost many rights, and were increasingly pushed to the margins of society. Almost 150 years later, Bangladesh officially recognized hijras as a third gender. India's Supreme Court followed suit. Hopes this would improve their living conditions were high. Despite legal progress, social stigmatization remains a challenge, even a decade after official recognition. But hijras and mushes are by no means the only people who have historically challenged the binary gender system.
There are many cultures in North America, Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, in Polynesia, in Siberia, or among the Inuit in the Arctic, where, for example, if a family had no sons to go hunting, daughters were brought up as boys. And then they also had a special status as hunters in their families. That means that in non-European cultures, there are very many, and I think also very old traditions of systems of more than just two genders.
Gender roles are not set in stone. Their manifestations are as diverse as the reasons for accepting or questioning them. Even in Europe, there are old traditions that break with gender norms. In the Balkans, for instance, there's the centuries-old tradition of the Borneshas. These sworn virgins formally take on male identities in order to live according to the societal rules for men. One of the last Borneshas lives in isolation in northern Albania. The practice of Borneshas goes back to the medieval common law of what was called kanun, in which men were traditionally placed above women. But Borneshas were an exception. They were able to break out of the patriarchal structures. For centuries, becoming a sworn virgin was the only way for a woman to become the head of a family or to avoid an unwanted marriage. As the social status of women in Albania has changed, this tradition has become less important. As we said a while back, gender norms, roles, and relations vary from society to society and evolve over time. And that's exactly what's happened here. Today, only a handful of Borneshas still live in Albania. Okay, so what have we learned? Diverse gender roles have been negotiated in traditional indigenous cultures for centuries, certainly in contrast to today's debates on gender diversity. But a look at history shows that a strict two-gender order is neither universal nor uncontroversial. Biological sex and social gender are not necessarily the same thing. The two are often confused in current debates. Anyone who addresses this topic is treading on difficult ground. The question of whether there are more than two genders is inextricably linked to the question of who defines gender and with what consequences. Gender is always a social and cultural construct. We hope you enjoyed our historical background on the gender debate. Do you know of any other gender concepts from your own culture?
No mai harama, no mai hoki mai e te whānau. You are tuned into your Flat Out Pride Hour here on Free FM 89.0 Independent Community Media. Live stream and podcast us via freefm.org.nz. Via the accessmedia.nz app, the TuneIn app. and also via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeart Radio. Just want to give a big flat-out shout-out to New Zealand On Air. Without you, access radio stations like Free FM wouldn't be here. A big flat-out shout-out to Free FM. Without you, Flat Out Pride wouldn't be here. And last but not least, a big flat-out shout-out to you fabulous listeners, you, for tuning in every Friday to hear what's hot and happening on your show. Lady H on your mic for your Funky Friday e te whānau. That last beat there, Thurman Green, Creature from the Deep. Flat out. Coming up on the rest of your show, weekend events, covering events across Aotearoa. Up next, TED Talks, Queer and Muslim. That's going to be followed by a beat by Pine and Fire, Dance on the Ashes. That's us. Stay tuned. I'm coming back to you soon.
In 2017, I decided to go on a national conservative talk show. I always love a challenge, and I didn't want to shy away from this one. I had just spent the previous year teaching people in the rural South how to talk about things like abortion, working at Planned Parenthood, and I spent the previous year working at Heineken in government relations. So I love a good challenge. And so when it came time for me to talk about safe spaces, I decided to do it on a conservative talk show. Bad messaging, I know, but I think I did a good job. Anyway, so safe spaces in the context that in the United States, we have several different programs aimed at targeting, harassing, and surveilling different communities. Against the Muslim community, it's called Countering Violent Extremism. It's supposed to be part of this counterterrorism effort, but what it ends up leading to is further radicalization, further marginalization, and mental health issues throughout these communities who are affected. So I made the argument that what if we spend the taxpayer money that goes into those programs that are harmful, and we put those into community spaces where people can talk about the difficult things, come closer to their communities, and feel empowered that they don't have to feel alone. And so I made that case, and I said, and in fact, let's not stop there. Black people need safe spaces where they can be free from police violence and from racism. LGBTQ people need spaces where they can be free from hate violence. The Pulse shooting had just happened a year prior to me going on the show. And the host, who very rudely interrupted me, said, "You're not there to speak on behalf on those communities." And I said, "Well, Tucker Carlson, in addition to being a Muslim woman, I am a Black queer person." And thank you. And I had just come out on national television to most of my family, to people all across the world, and to all of my coworkers. And I couldn't put it back in the box. It was the Pandora's box. Everything was out. I could feel my phone notifications buzzing. People were sending me death threats. People were sending me words of encouragement. GLAAD had reached out. Amazing things. But I just wanted to get through the interview. And I think I did a good job. You can check it out on YouTube. Highly recommend. Now I'm kind of the token queer Muslim, and that's not the case at all. There are so many of us. There's Leo Kalian, there's Abdi Lak, there's Fazia Misra. There's so many of us. And today I work with an organization called Muslims for Progressive Values, and we work to advance progressive values of Islam, values that are very much rooted in historical context. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start at the beginning. I was born Blair Elizabeth Brown. Yes, not Blair Amani. I changed my name. I converted to Islam in 2015, but I had grown up in a Christian community, but not a conservative one. I'm blessed to say that I never grew up in a space where people were telling me homophobic things, whether that was at home, at school, or at church. I grew up in a family where literally the first time I've ever heard anything in the gray area of homophobic was last week, and it was a mistake. It was a misunderstanding, thank goodness. And so I kind of grew up feeling like I could be whoever I wanted to be, including my sexual orientation and my gender identity. And so when I had my first bisexual crush when I was 8 years old, I didn't completely know what it meant, but I knew there was something there. You see, I had a crush on this kid, whose name I won't say because that's very awkward, and his sister. And I liked them for distinct reasons. It's kind of that age where you start getting butterflies in your stomach because somebody writes you a Valentine's Day card, even though they wrote it for the whole class. But you feel a little bit special. And right as that was happening, I started to become concerned because when I saw things like Disney movies, there was always a prince and a princess, or a beast and a princess, which is also confusing. But I knew that there were no princesses or princes together, and so I felt like maybe I should suppress this part of myself, and I did, kind of. That is until I came out to my mom when I was 15. You see, I was standing there in front of her, very ABC Family style, in my all-girls Catholic uniform, and I said, "Mommy, I'm a lesbian." And she goes, "Oh, no. Honey, you're bisexual." And I am. And I was before, and I will be forever. But I finally had something to call it. And when I converted to Islam in 2015, I felt very comfortable and very aware of the fact that Allah made me with all of my flaws and imperfections, but made me to be a queer Muslim because Allah makes no mistakes. And so when I converted, I started to get messages from people, especially after I came out, people asking me, how do I reconcile being a person of faith and being queer? And I always say, we don't reconcile identities in my house, we reconcile bank accounts, okay? There's nothing to reconcile, because in the Quran, there is no condemnation of same-gender loving relationships. And I know, maybe some of you in the audience here, some of you online, all the people online, are saying, but Blair, what about the story of Sodom and Gomorrah? What about the story of Prophet Lot? And so, for you non-religious people, to be one of you, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah is a story about a town that was doing horrible acts of rape, acts of incest, acts that we know in human psychology cause trauma and pain. Not a condemnation of same-gender loving relationships, things that do not cause trauma and pain. What does cause trauma and pain, and even mental illness, is having to hide parts of yourself because people use religious texts against you. And so, first and foremost, I'm a historian. I'm also a Black woman. And in my culture, we believe in receipts, and that is when you demonstrate facts based on what you're presenting presently. So here's some receipts, okay? First and foremost, when Muslims and Christians began to come into contact with each other, Muslims were known for being very sexually permissive, not sexually restrictive. So seeing this narrative today that Muslims are uniquely homophobic is not at all rooted in history. In fact, Muslims were often characterized as perverted or bisexual. I'm the latter. And so, as this continued, the time when we started to see more of a puritanical approach to Islam was when there was contact with European Victorian moralities that started to criminalize things like same-gender loving relationships and starting to define things like sodomy, acts between people who both have penises, as bad and villainous and something to be condemned, and something to be codified in the law as being condemned. At that time, in the 19th century, you start seeing legislation being passed in places like Lebanon and in places all across the Islamic world that condemn these acts, but it did not come from Islam. And so, of the 5 Islamic countries that do not have anti-sodomy legislation on the books, those are countries that do not have the same relationship with colonization as countries like Saudi Arabia and Brunei. Those are the facts. The other thing too, though, people like me, people who are Muslim and who have progressive values, are constantly being charged with westernizing the Muslim world. But the Muslim world is already westernized. These ideas of puritanical values, of interpreting the Quran to be oppressive, those did not come from Islam. Those came from colonizers, Western colonizers. And so, how do we make a world where people don't take their lives because they feel like they cannot reconcile being queer and being Muslim, or being queer and being a person of faith? Well, first, it comes by knowing that queer people are born within every demographic in the world. There are queer Jews, queer Mormons, queer Catholics, queer Protestants, queer Muslims, and I'm proof. And I will continue working toward a world where we can be our full selves. Because like the rainbow that represents us, LGBTQ people are beautiful and naturally occurring. Thank you so much.
Flat Out te whānau, you're tuned back into your Flat Out Pride Hour on Free FM 89.0, independent community media. Live stream and podcast us via freefm.org.nz, via the accessmedia.nz app, the TuneIn app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify and iHeart Radio. If you miss us on Fridays at 5, then these are the spaces you can tune in. Podcasts are on. That last beat there, Pine and Fire, Dance on the Ashes. Hope you enjoyed the show, e te whānau. We're rolling into weekend events. What's hot and happening around Aotearoa this coming weekend. Today is Friday, the 2nd of May. Over in Tauranga, there is a community art exhibition. The event is hosted by the Incubator Creative Hub, ICU, starting at 10 this morning. So 159 17th Ave, Tauranga South is where it's at. It's a vibrant community-driven art exhibition designed to celebrate visibility, identity and connection. Held during Tauranga Pride Month, the event invites people from all walks of life, including those within our Rainbow Takata MVP whānau, to paint their own eyes or the eyes of someone they love onto wooden tiles. Through this collective work of art, they create a powerful visual statement. Everyone deserves to be seen. Love that engaging in the creativity process. That's stunning. So if you want to be part of the event, you need more information, or you want to see more information, you also need to register, okay? So get in, e te whānau. Love that idea, love that creativeness. Beats by bingo. Oh, whānau, so it's not specifically for us, but I've never seen anything like this. Winniebago's Ferrymead is the location, 2 Waterman Place in Ferrymead, Christchurch. So the host DJ Nakawa is a musical bingo show. So it happens once a month on a Friday. So it features throwback jams, sing-alongs, prize winning, and maybe even a dance-off. So free to play and super fun. So you've got to contact Winnie's in order to book. But instead of numbers, you bingo the songs. Pretty cool, eh? Areti. For your Saturday, 19th International Female Ride Day in Taranaki. So when I say ride day, we're talking motorcycles, e te whānau. New Plymouth Sport Fishing and Underwater Club 45 Ocean View Parade at Port Taranaki, New Plymouth. So the registrations are open, e te whānau. It's hosted by Litars Taranaki. We welcome all women to come ride on the special female ride day around our awesome maunga, Mount Taranaki. Cool, love that stuff. Hue Market ki Tamaki Makaurau, that's at Onehunga Community House. Humanity Reimagined by TEDx. So I've never been to a TEDx talk. I've seen lots of them and I've shared lots of them on the show. This one is set up at 100 Willis Street in Wellington. Get your tickets from events.humanitix.com. So for this one on Saturday, it's an eclectic selection of talks and networking with like-minded people. The event will be a Wellington first, where they replay a selection of talks from the TED Conference 2025. You need to go to the link to register. ICU is still continuing on at a community art exhibition on 17th Ave in Tauranga for your Saturday. Artistic Fun Day open for learning to skaters. That is at Hamilton Roller Skating Club. That's Melville Park off Bader Street. So that's number 2, Bader Street, e te whānau. So if you don't know how to skate and you want to learn, these sessions are for you. Get on down. Sisters United Reunion at the Hamilton Cosmopolitan Club, Inc. That's for your Saturday, 32 Claudelands Road in H-Town. Back for one night only. Sisters United Reunion with the best showgirls from Waikato and Auckland. Miss Collagen, Miss Robina NZ, Rita Menu, Chi Chi Lacroix, Crucifix June, and your girl group Black Magic. Get your tickets from the link. Rainbow Lounge Gathering is happening on your Sunday at Navara Lounge. That's the basement at 266 Victoria Street. It's the monthly gathering and it's a nightclub theme. So go on down from 5 p.m. for some groovy sounds from resident DJ Goldfinger. Book Club Girls from 3:30 p.m. Nice. Still on your Sunday, Queer 2024 Naming NZ Movie Fundraiser. That is happening at Cuba Lighthouse Theatre, 29 Wigan Street in Te Aro, Wellywood. Nice. We like movies and we like hanging out together. Out at the pool, still on your Sunday, Keith Spry Pool, 6 Wanaka Street, Johnsonville in Wellington. So these sessions are regular monthly sessions for all queer, trans, gender diverse and non-binary folks. Get on down there. Monday to Thursday, is the ICU Community Art Exhibition in Tauranga. On Thursday evening, the 8th of May, open mic night at Eva. That is 35 Dixon Street in Wellywood. So open mic night, celebration of Wellington's finest musicians. So every Thursday, te whānau, from 8 p.m. onwards. Drag bingo with Selena Simone at Dirty Little Secret, still on your Thursday there. Get your tickets from dirtylittlesecret.co.nz. It's not your grandma's bingo, this is drag bingo with local drag artist, your dad's favourite, sinner and showgirl, Selena Simone. Get on down. And that is all I have for you in terms of events for this coming weekend. I know there's hundreds of events that are going on in Aotearoa. These are the events I found for us relating to our community. Hui anō te whānau. I hope you have a fabulous weekend wherever you are, whatever you're getting up to, whomever you're getting up to. Be safe on the streets and in the sheets. Condoms and lube are your safest form of protection. Have a fabulous weekend. Me, I am this weekend keeping warm so I don't get sick because it's changing. The weather's changing on us quite oddly here in Waikato. And I'm going to head to some community clinics. If you're interested in traditional Māori healing, then head on over to 108 Grandview Road on Saturday from 10:30 to 1 p.m. And then on Sunday at Ngāroa Wāhia Community Hall, that is from 10 till 2. It's koha payment for your session and rungwa is sold separately. That's what I'm going to be getting up to, e te whānau. Hui anō, stay warm, stay well.